just you get to choose. Right? Like here's the scenario. The environment gives us something which can be perceived as negative, can be perceived as not working, can be perceived as problematic. The world's ending. But we get to choose to see it like that, or we get to choose to see it as an opportunity.
So clearly that it's my responsibility now to do that for other people. If I have information and, other people's success is my success and vice versa.
Because you know what? Like, the challenges or the roadblocks are the journey themselves.
There's no big things. It's all little things compounding on top of each other. Coach Nick Davies and I are proud to present Coach's Corner on this week's episode of Truth Seekers. We dive deep into the conversation of growing business and what it means to reach different levels of success and how each level requires us to reverse the flow of something we've already built and adopt new belief systems that would be congruent with our goals. We draw on the screen today for those of you watching on our YouTube channel, and for those of you listening, please use your imagery as you're driving. Please be safe. Anyways, here's this week's episode of Truth Seekers, Coach's Corner with Nick Davies. Truth Seekers Unite, here we are back for another episode, special Coach's Corner edition with Coach Nick Davies. I'm Josh Greco. What's up, Coach?
What's going on, Coach? Coaches Unite. Yeah, there we go. That's nice. I love it. We've done a few Coaches Corners now. I like the fact that it's special. Just because you've done something more than once doesn't mean it can't be special.
Yeah, I can say special edition every time, right? And it still applies.
Yeah. But isn't that a great reminder of, the power of language, transformational vocabulary? If it's special, it's like, oh, okay, it's special. Then I should perform like it's special. I should show up like it's special. I expect special. I will see special. And then special will appear around me. And then I'll see more of it. And then everyone else will see it as well. And it will just be more and more special.
Is there anything you're doing right now, Coach, that's not special that we need to elevate before we begin our conversation?
Then the check to that, the checks and balances to that is then if everything's special, then nothing's special. So it has to be situational and time bound as well.
Yeah, I like the switch flipping right there. That's good. That's good.
Mm.
All right. So discussion today, topic, anything top of mind for you? What are we diving deeper into? What are we going 20,000 leagues under the sea with?
20,000 leagues under the sea. I do like the continual depth of concept which comes up a lot around protection of time and only doing high level activities. What resistance do you get from stopping doing something? And we know we can't just stop, we've got to move towards, but part of that thought process goes through that, right? It's like, I want to go and do more of this, therefore I've got to stop this. Do you have a resistance in that thought?
I used to. So just to take the words that you're using, protecting time, it's basically implying that it's yours to give away. And at a different time, I maybe felt like I owed it to people to connect with them or to share things with them, or like, what business do I have saying no? Like they want to meet with me and they want to speak with me. So it's just the reframe or the perspective at which I saw those moments. And I think for me, forgive the analogy, my cup had to be full with those moments to be like, all right, it's time for a change. Like I had to get to a point to where like I was doing it too much to be able to see how it was hurting me or how I could better use that time elsewhere. I get more results more quickly if I protected it, to use your term.
Or was there some validation then from the fact that people were asking you for your time, and you're like, oh yeah, I must be special, because, to use that again, because people want my time, so I owe it to them, but really it's because I appreciate them wanting me, therefore I must mean something, therefore I must have value.
I believe that's true. If I think of the stage I was in before that, it was seeking people out. Like, how do I find people? Where are they? And all of a sudden the energy was switched to where they're reaching out to me. So thank you for this. Oh my gosh, I'm in high demand. I'll take every one of these calls. Absolutely. So then it's about the flow, right? You have to reverse the flow at different stages. The first flow was outbound, attempting to connect with other people, that flow reversed. Then it became inbound. Okay, well, that became maybe too abundant. Or once it was abundant, I had a different flow that I can redirect, and it became the protecting time flow, if you will.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about how that might look. We were talking about the visual earlier, but I think the sequential part of it would be cool as well to play with. Maybe we can play with something. Can I share my screen? This will be fun for people that are listening. But what if, so we've got these different levels. We've got levels. We have level one is the reaching out, right? There's nothing that exists yet. And so whatever your business is, or even if it's not a business, just where in your life, it's just starting. When you start something, you've got nothing. So you're asking for something. So asking, right? You're asking for that conversation to be booked, asking for conversation, right? Keep me honest here, coach. Does this work? And then, because when you start reaching out, then you do that enough, and then you start to have starting to get calls. So you start reaching out, you reach out enough people, you start to book calls, or you have mutually agreed conversations. So asking for conversations, then it's having conversations, and that's that's a big deal. But wow, like I'm doing something, and people now want to talk to me, or they agree to talk to me, and you're excited about it, and then that leads to what? That leads to an agreement to have a relationship, right? Agreement to move forward with something.
With a certain percentage of them, right?
Right. But the point is, you start to see, that's certainly right, because it's the funnel or a ratio, you start to see that by reaching out, that's exciting for a start. And then you do it enough with enough energy, you start to get calls booked. And when you get enough calls booked, then you start to get relationships agreed with that. It's like, wow, that's cool. And then you do more of it, and what happens? So what's the level 4 of this part?
So once relationships are agreed upon, then there's some sort of business deal,
right,
that you enter into.
So I'm thinking the concept of, so I'm reaching out, so I've got nothing, and I'm getting calls booked, and that's exciting. And I'm getting agreed relationships which are recurring. So those recurring agreed relationships, and then the 4 part is overflow of the relationships, or now there's a step before that, right? Because it's not the overflow of relationships, it's the overflow of the calls, overflow of time request. Can you see that?
The calls are filling up more quickly than the customers are. Yes.
Too many, yeah. More calls than space. So, then we're back into the tyranny of the urgent, right? That's what happens. There's too much going on. And then, so the antidote is stop doing the things you did at the start to get now better results. Because you still want number 3, right? You still want that recurring relationship. You just want more depth on it. The flow throughput of this. Would you agree?
Yeah. So I'd say step number 1, that there is no other option, right? You got to kick up the energy in the universe to go out there and make those connections.
Yeah.
Now that changes. There's other ways to get it once you have that momentum behind you, once the prime is pumped at level 3 there.
Right. And then so once you start to get overflow, then it becomes new process, right? It's like protect time. That's what we got. That's what we got to start talking to the beginning there. Protect time.
It's also where a new belief system has to be adopted. It's no longer I have to do as much as possible to get as many calls as possible. That's out the window.
Yep, exactly. So hard work no longer works.
It's good, coach.
Yeah, because if you do more hard work, then you just get more of what you don't want. You get more requests for your time when you haven't got space for them. Work harder, serve more people, then you'll get more requests for your time. So hard work no longer works. What's the expanded version of it then? So if hard work was the genesis of the start, what's the genesis of this new, what's step one of this new next level process?
It's a version of working smarter.
Yep.
So what I would do is carve out which of my calls were my favorites, which of the relationships, like what's the ideal version of what I'm looking for, so that I can A, identify that when it happens, and B, attempt to replicate it and get more of it more quickly.
So review ideal relationship. And I think this part as well is depending on where you are, because it could be part of this is removing some of the non-ideal relationships. So I guess if you've been doing this, I mentioned in that Jeff Bezos approach to high level leadership is just making high level decisions, which seems obvious, but then the application of it is that that person spends most of their time protecting themselves from being requested to make low level decisions, or that, I mean, that's easier, but also high level decisions, but not the highest level decisions. So there's it's the reset in between to create a space to review what you should actually be doing. So whether that's client relationships or if it's high level decision making from a different type of role perspective.
Yes, I feel like you can flip that first one in the opposite. So if you review the ideal client or ideal relationship, then you know what you can say no to.
Yeah.
Maybe you have some parameters of like, I'm willing to take it if it's close or if it's got potential to be close. But if it shows no signs of any part of that being ideal, then the answer is no.
I love this, because this has been playing in my head for a long time. But having the steps laid out and then having the opposite, because that's all it is, it's the opposite, right? The sales versus selection, the energy out versus energy in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more of the belief system. Like I'm attracting the type of client that I want to work with. They're looking for me. Yeah. As opposed to I got to go beat down the doors and be a world beater to find these people. Where are they?
Yeah. So reaching out, the opposite of reaching out is not reaching out, which means knowing who knowing who is looking for you, which is reviewing. So knowing who is looking for me. That's just the realization of who it is, right? Because then if you know who it is, then you can see it. It's just that part of your mind, the RAS, right? It's like you got a new car, or even better. Because for me, I've always loved cars, right? So if I'm going to go buy a new car, I'm not a person that's going to go to a showroom and have someone sell me on a car. I already know what car I'm going to buy. So I'm going to the showroom to validate that and then do a deal and then leave. So if I know what car I'm going to buy before, and even before I buy it, I'm starting to see that car all the time on the damn roads because I've told myself that's what I'm looking for. Same thing with your ideal client. If you told yourself who you're looking for, and if you use the language of that's who's looking for you, then you're going to see them looking for you. So then Bingo. The opposite of starting to book calls is going to be saying no to all calls except for the people that are looking for you specifically.
Mm-hmm. Another version of that exercise that I like, Coach, is a quick 5-second exercise. Ready? Look around the room. Look at everything orange. What's orange in your vision? What's orange? Orange, orange. Close your eyes. Tell me 3 things that were green. Can you do it?
No, cannot do it. Cannot do it. What's also awesome as well, you can go, the second part of that exercise, right, is like, look at all the things that are orange, look at all the things that are orange. Okay, like what did you find that was green? And then, what else did you find that was maybe like yellow, but you told yourself it was green just so you could win? Right?
Yeah. Who else am I trying to force into this ideal client profile that, like, if we're being honest, they're square, they're not round.
Right. So if this is it's an octagon, it's kind of round.
If you just shave it off a little bit, it can fit, I promise.
So what's the next step then? So the level 3 of the first part is agreement moving forward for current relationships, then level 3 is what? Same thing? Because this is for me a real distinction to make. Cracking this part.
Yeah, so I think so let's follow the logic here. We're reviewing the ideal relationship, knowing who is looking for me, saying no to the ones that don't fit. We're getting more agreements with people who are our ideal clients. So we're creating a portfolio of people that we look forward to working with and are our types of people, are our tribe, and we're making an incredible value with them, developing value.
So it's an agreement to move forward ideal relationship. So then what's the opposite of the next step? Because that's kind of similar. But so then what's the opposite of the overflow? Is it that when you introduce that ideal person in, they're ideal, so therefore all they're doing is they're adding to everyone else's ideal. So rather than overflow, you're creating more depth of impact and value from the other people that are part of your world.
Explain that further.
So if I'm adding more clients to add more clients, then ultimately I'm going to end up with an overflow of time requests because I'm not being specific enough. But if I'm only adding ideal clients, what I'm adding is not an overflow, the opposite of overflow. I'm adding the right amount of flow to the frequency at which I'm living at, which means this client not only adds to me in our relationship, but it adds to everyone else in my life because it makes me better as well as makes them better.
Yeah, so I'm picturing like you think of a funnel, right? It starts out wide. All you're doing is narrowing the funnel, and when you direct that energy to be tighter, you can go deeper with it. There's more levels and depth that you can get to create more and more value.
Right. So then you've got optimal flow, creating more and more value, but then you're also going to start to hit a limit on that as well, right?
Yes, I knew this was coming. Go ahead.
So then is it just a repeat of the same thing with just different language?
I don't think so. Because there's got to be a point to where like it can't get more ideal. Like you're in that place. Like, so say your schedule is full and you have more of the same types of people. I think your question is like, is there another version higher or better than the current ideal client? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because like so let's just say the maximum client load you have is 10 clients. And you've got 10 clients that are just any old clients. Or maybe you've got 20% they're ideal. You've got 2 ideal clients. So you replace all those 10 clients, those 8 clients that aren't ideal with ideal clients, you end up with 10 ideal clients. And then effectively you're optimized. But then you've created perfection. So we don't like that. So then progress demands that there's another version of it. So does that just come down to, well, what do you want? Do you want to just continue to work with your ideal clients? Because then it's a combination of, okay, well, you could say, well, I'm just going to go deeper with my ideal clients. But then that might mean that you can only have, maybe that's what it is. Maybe that means that you can only have 8 ideal clients because I'm going deeper with those. And then maybe it means you can have 5 ideal clients, but you have double, tripled your value income because they're so ideal, but now you've only got 5 clients. And that's the same amount of time it was with 10 non-ideal clients.
Yeah, I think hearing you walk through that, the takeaway for me is that you get the option. It does come down to what you want. Do you want to create a different version of it, a better version? Do you want to put a bow on it and sail off into the sunset because you got what you want and you're 10 people? For me, if it's coming down to value, how can I create the most value possible? Actually just journaled about this morning. I think it's like, what's next? Let's keep going. I'm motivated. I'm at the top of my game. Creating value for 10 people is great, but how can I magnify that? And maybe we coach other people, or maybe we talk to other people or work with our other clients to create value for their people, then it's magnified. Then we're talking exponential returns.
Yeah, I think it's actually really simple, isn't it? You say that, right? This is actually just the same thing. It's like most people aren't getting to this level of optimization, so they're not having the space to think about what's next because they're just in the merry-go-round of whatever specific level they've got up to, whether that's first level, level 10, even just as part of that same cycle, right? Because that optimization is just overly simplified, but that's the cycle to follow. But really, once you get to the point where it's simple, where it's optimized, you're already starting to think, okay, what's the next level game of this? How can I, okay, so I know I can impact 10 people in their ideal, and it's great, but how can I do this with 100 people, 1,000 people? It's like, how do I create, and we're back to leverage versus effort. But it's not enough. That's where we get people stuck. They're getting to the leverage versus effort part often happens by accident. And that's why most people get there and they go, I don't know what to do with myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think we should pay homage to each one of those levels because there's a vast majority of the population that never gets out of level one. Like to get to that level to where people start calling you is freaking fantastic. Like congratulations, great. As we know, and as we set the standard, there's always more. So even when we're in our sweet spot, like what's a greater version of that? It's like such a place of abundance to be in, but we get the choice to choose there. And like we always say, if that's perfect, it scares the hell out of me. What's the progression of perfect? There's got to be something on the other side of that.
Love it. I love it. And it never stops, right? It's like whatever your particular flavor of it is, and I've got some cool notes to take on this as well. But so if I'm looking at this, I'm either listening or I'm looking and I'm listening at the same time. I'm thinking, okay, all right, well, this is what my business looks like, or I'm just starting a business, or I don't have a business, or this is my career, this is what my career looks like, or I want to go do this. Where do you start, coach? Like, what's the universal starting point? Because everyone's a bit different on it. So how can you create a flavor of that whoever's listening can start to attach themselves to? What do you think?
That's a great question. I shared a document with you today, an image that was the rungs of the ladder of success. And there's a great image. Maybe I'll even throw it up here for Rob can throw this in. Thanks, producer Rob. Of if the first rung is out of our reach, then we never get started. I think that's so common. There's so many people out there that know they want something. They know that they're more capable of what they're achieving, and there's more out there. But the first step is not clear. And so maybe the universal step of what to do is write down what you're committed to doing, no matter how small that step is. So if you don't have a business, what do you need to do? Do you need to develop a business? Do you need to sign on to a company? Do you need to develop an LLC? What is the action that's required of you? What's the smallest rung in that ladder that you can just take a little baby step? Because we often get so clouded of what step number 2 is, we can't see it until we take step number 1. Take step number 1. If you don't take step number 1, then step 2 cannot happen. I think that's so common. And say you have a business, right? So what's the version of this to go up another level? You can break down or magnify every one of those steps that you drew out today. So that's step number 1 of, maybe people struggle with the outbound calls. You got to make more outbound calls or more connections to even get to that first place of abundance. So what are you committed to? If you want that place of abundance in step 4 or 3 or whatever we ended with, you got to, the rung of that ladder, the version of the rung of that ladder is to get to the first place of abundance. And you can't do that if you're just making a couple calls a day or a week. So write it down. That would be my advice. Write down what you're committed to so that you can cross it off and you have that clarity of whether or not you took the action. Because if you don't do that, there's all sorts of gray area there and nobody wins with gray area.
I've really been enjoying this lately. Life is not about playing to win. Life is just about playing so you can play again. I don't want to get to the end of the ladder. I just want to get to the next step. And how many steps should you have? Well, as many as possible, because the more steps that you've got, the smaller they should be. The gap between them should be. So you want to make it, even if something appears like you can reach the next step. How can you start with the lower step? Because that's the part. So that visual I love, because that the steps out of reach. But I'd like to see one also, like I think of a version where a step is in reach, but they'd have to put their leg up pretty high to get it. And then maybe they'd have to jump a little bit to get it. So in their mind, they're like, I can get it. But they're still not doing it. It must be that it's still too high. Even if you can physically get, I mean, maybe even in that visual, the lady could jump and get it, right?
Yeah.
Not just reach. But then she required to pull herself up, which is
Incredible upper body strength. Yeah.
Yeah. So make it, even if it feels like you can see it and it's in reach and it's simple and you should, but you're not, that's the biggest indicator that it's too high.
Yeah, I think the last part for me, Coach, as we wrap up here, I'll say part of that process is faith or trust that the next rung will be there. Maybe you can't see the next rung, right? If you're looking up, right, if you're a visionary, kind of feeling around with your foot, you don't even know that it's there. You just kind of trust that that next rung is there. That's half the journey here. I think that's where a lot of inaction comes. It's like, if I take the action, like I'm not guaranteed it anyway, right? Like what's going to happen if I make that phone call? That person's probably not my ideal client. Very true, right? That X number percentage, very high, is not your type of person. But you got to be in the game. You have to, if that's really what you desire, get after it. Get to a point to where it's actually more painful not to take the step than to actually take it.
Nailed it, Coach. Love it.
Thank you for joining me on another edition, a special edition of Coach's Corner. We'll see you next week for Truth Seekers.
Thank you for watching another episode of Truth Seekers. We appreciate your interaction. So please comment, like, subscribe to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want more, check out some of our links. Links to our masterclass, The Achiever's Mindset, and come join our LinkedIn group. And what do you want to see more of? Remember, we're here to share the simple secrets of successful. So help us do that. What do you want to see? What do you want to see more of? Thanks, and see you again next time.